A very good day to you. I hope you're having yourself an amazing Tuesday night. That is, if you're watching or listening from Kenya. And I hope you're having yourself an amazing Tuesday. If you're watching or listening from abroad, this is the Black Hot Fire updates. Where I'm going to be telling you about each and everything that was making the headlines in Africa today. From Kenya to South Africa to Mauritania to Congo to Nigeria. And of course, every other place that was making headlines today. So I'll start with Kenya, of course, with what has been happening in Kenya. We've been having protests for the last couple of weeks. Today was the fifth day that we had the anti-government protests. They started as the anti-finance bill protest, but the same has escalated to now being anti-government protests, to it being now the people are demanding for the government to resign, the government of President William Ruto. However, today we saw a different shift in the demonstrations. I personally think the government of Kenya decided to hit back at the demonstrators, you know, and they decided to use a method that they have been using over the longest, the last few decades, and it always works. And they are banking on it to also work again this time. That is the method of changing public perception on the demos, because one thing that was for sure was that everybody was supporting the Kenyan youth with their demos because one, they were very peaceful, they were partyless, they were tribeless, they were leaderless. So the government was losing popularity and the demos were gaining so much support from everybody, including, funny to say, but the church. So now the plan, according to what I think and what I was able to analyze today, the plan was to change the public perception on the demos, to change the shift, to taint the demos as violent and as those ones being led by looters. One, that is to change the perception from the general public, and two, that is to discourage the young people from going out in the streets. It did work, because the number of people who are in the streets today was less as compared to the ones that were there the other weeks. And also, there was a lot of looting that happened today by government sponsored goons. I'm saying government sponsored goons because, for once, the police are always in the streets and they always shoot, throw tear gas canisters at peaceful protesters. But today, as the looters were looting, nobody was intervening. The police were nowhere to be seen. So it looks like the government has come up with a new strategy of involving. That's what I think. It's my opinion. It's not factual. I'm just saying what I think as a person. I think the government might be involving hiring goons to get into the protests and to make the protest look, to change the public perception, to wash away the support that the Kenyan youth demonstrators have been getting, because they've been getting a lot of support from everywhere, from the older generation, from the parents. And this is working in two ways. One, for example, they were able to loot. Today they looted several supermarkets. They looted them dry. They burnt cars. They, in short, the demonstrations today were not peaceful. The young people were peaceful, but there was infiltration by a group of people who are most likely government financed. Because how come the police are always vigilant and on the lookout when it comes to shooting youth peaceful protesters, but when it comes to dealing with the criminals that are doing it, it reached a point where the protesters sat back and left the looters to do what. And by 2 3 p.m. There were calls for the protesters to go home, because it became clear that it wasn't a protest today. And I expected that to happen. That is one of the oldest cards that the political class plays in Kenya. It has been played so many times. Former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko admitted that during the 2018 um, post-election demos, they used to buy old cars and then touch them up so that they can taint Raila and the opposition as violent individuals, so that even when the demonstrators are, for example, killed, there won't be an uproar, because people will already be siding with the government. So it is all a matter of changing public perception. It is all a matter of making sure that people do not perceive the young people as they were being perceived as peaceful, which they are. And that is why today, when the looting started, when the vandalism started, when the hooliganism started, the young people left the streets. So today we are gonna there is going to be a X space. X is where all the demos have been getting organized, and it looks like it is also the place where government um, intelligence agents have been listening to when the demos are going to be taking place, where they are going to be taking place, and using the same to hire goons to vandalize and to ensure that they taint the demonstrations as violent and show the young people like as looters and thieves. In the morning, they tried to deal with the thieves. They were able to beat several of them. They tried dealing with them, but it reached a point where there were too many thieves to be dealt with, too many looters, too many hooligans in the streets. And out of that, a lot of property was destroyed today, including the new Kenyan expressway, which the Nairobi Expressway was destroyed somewhere in Lolongo. Several supermarkets, including Quickmart supermarket, was destroyed in Nairobi and in Mombasa. In Mombasa, it reached a point where business people, the ones who are privileged enough to have guns, went out and started shooting at the hooligans, and several of them were killed and injured by the business community themselves. Even in Nairobi, we saw the business people coming out to protect their businesses now, because it became apparent that this was not a demonstration, it was hooliganism, sponsored hooliganism. That is the oldest page from the Kenyan political class playbook. They always pull that whenever they see a certain movement is gaining popularity, it is people are starting to support it more than they're supporting the government. They always pull out that card so that they can now justify whatever else is going to happen. For example, today, whatever is going to happen, if anybody is going to get killed today, if anybody was shot today, which I'm sure several people were shot. I've seen one person was shot dead in Migori. I saw another one shot and injured in the CBD. So now every police brutality that will happen today will be drowned by the hooliganism that took place. In fact, the business community, business owners, and some Kenyans will be happy that some of those hooligans were shot. I personally wish it was those hooligans who were shot instead of the innocent Kenyans who were shot, because most of them are hooligans who they would touch any vehicle on the road. And you forget that the enemy is not, we are not enemies with each other. We are all but citizens of this country who are fighting against an oppressive regime. So when it reaches a point where you even touching vehicles, it wasn't even hooliganism that is meant to benefit anyone. It is just hooliganism that is just meant to taint, because it wasn't even about looting, it was about destroying. They would burn down vehicles. When you burn down a vehicle, there's no way you are benefiting from it. I would rather listen to the ones that looted a supermarket and say at least they benefited, they went home with, in as much as it is unjustifiable and wrong and going against the cause, because the cause is not to create more unemployment in the country, because that is what we are doing at the moment. That is what the hooligans are doing at the moment, because, for example, the supermarkets that were looted, what that will mean is the people who are working there will now not be having jobs, because, for example, Quickmart is a franchise, if I'm not wrong. So it wasn't owned by the Quickmart enterprise, it was owned by an individual. So once they loot the individual dry, then 100 people will be unemployed, and we are not solving anything. So the hooliganism, the destruction, especially of private property of other people, is not helping the cause in any way. It is actually taking us back, dragging us back 5 steps from where we were. And the first two demos were very peaceful. The third one was also peaceful. The fourth one was also pretty peaceful, except for a few secluded cases. An example being in Rongai, where they looted a supermarket dry, a clean shelf supermarket, killed a police officer and made away with the police officer's gun. The demos have been peaceful. The young people are educated, civilized, and as one MP said, they're a generation that goes to the demos on Ubers and eat KFC. So they are not violent at all. They are not interested in. In fact, in the first few days, even today in the morning, when they caught a thief, they would beat the thief up and take him to the police until it reached a point where they were too many. So I'm actually very mad today that in as much as I expected that playbook to work, that for them to play that card from the the political class in Kenya, that is the only card they pull when they realize that they can't be able to bribe the organizers. And in this case, they have been trying to look for the leaders, to have a conversation with the leaders. But since there has been no leader, so of course they had to go back to that, where they are going to make sure. So what happens is, even the young, even for example, a person like me who had planned to go for the demos in the afternoon, if I had planned to go for the demos in the afternoon, and then I see the looting that is happening, then I'm not going to go. So it is about suppressing the people from going, because the peaceful ones will not go mix up with the looters and the hooligans, and now the police will have a better reason to shoot the hell out of you by saying you are part of the looters. And secondly, now the business people in Nairobi are, of course, now going to have a negative perception of and the business people, the business community in Nairobi was really, really supporting the demonstrations at the protests, giving people water, giving people refuge, hiding them from the police. And so I know even a mosque in the CBD that was that was had given out their parking lot to be used as a first aid station by the Red Cross. So we really need to go back. The young people really need to go back and re-strategize and work out a different approach, because even on Thursday when we go out, the government is going to pull out that card again, that vandalism card. And the today they had hired thousands of them. They were in their hundreds, some of them in motorcycles, some of them in. And therefore, as a demonstrator, now you are wary of the police who want to shoot you, and the hooligans who want to steal from you and still beat you up. And now the business community is outside also trying to protect their businesses. They don't know who's the hooligan, who's not. So they were outside with pangas and machetes. So it wasn't really a lovely scene today. I wouldn't describe today's demonstration as a success. However, we still have a chance to go back and re-strategize, because if we go back to the streets tomorrow, they are going to pull the same card. So we can, for example, stop with the running, because it is in the middle of that running here and there that it's just but my opinion, it is in the middle of that running here and there that they are making it successful to infiltrate hooliganism. So going back to protest online will not work, because this is a deaf administration. They're not going to listen to online activism. You can make as many hashtags as you want. I don't think they're going to listen to anybody unless they actually feel our presence. But also they're looking for ways to kill you and make it justifiable. So that is why the infiltration of hooliganism. In case you think, let me share a video of, so that I can just show you an image of what today's demonstrations looked like. So let me share a video of the same. This is just hooliganism, to say the least, because it's people stoning buildings, breaking down glasses, touching vehicles. This was in Mombasa, by the way. A similar situation, if not worse, was also witnessed in Nairobi. this vehicle belongs to a fellow citizen, so there's absolutely no reason for you to vandalize, burn, destroy anybody else's vehicle just because you don't have one. I mean, this is not what we're fighting for. We're not fighting against each other. And I know this is making the regime smile their way to bed today, because they know that today's demonstrations were not as successful as we had thought it would be. The vandalism and us now rising against each other, it is what that gentleman was saying, that when I'm fighting for African rights, I have to fight with one arm. The other one, I always have to be vigilant and fight against fellow Africans who want to fight me. So now, as a demonstrator, you have to be on the lookout for such hooligans who want to taint the name of our noble cause. You have to be on the lookout for the police. You have to be on the lookout for the army. You have to be on the lookout for the business owners who, for example, in Mombasa, there was one who shot about 3 people, unconfirmed. They say he killed one of them, and rightly so, because he was. There is no way I'm also, as a business owner, I'm going to allow you to come and vandalize my hard-earned business. I'm not the enemy. I'm not the enemy, you know. We have the same enemy. So there's no way I'm also, as a business owner, going to allow you to vandalize my business. And so that businessman took out his gun and shot about 3 people, and they say one died. They say one of them died. And they ended up touching up his vehicle and almost killing him. I don't know about the truth of any of the claims. I wasn't in Mombasa, and everything that I'm reporting on is second-hand information. So if something needs to change, because we are losing the plot. That was unnecessary, very, very unnecessary to do that. Touching up vehicles is very, very unnecessary. And to be honest, the same thing happened in Rongai on last week. They looted several supermarkets in Rongai. They tried to loot. That is on the night where there were gunshots up to until 10 p.m., to a point that we had to have a curfew for a few days. It was the same scenario, only that now the police are also very, very, one, unprofessional. They're very careless. So instead of them going for the people who are looting, they ended up shooting and killing kids who had nothing to do with the looting. The police are blind-eyed when it comes to this. That is why it even had to take that businessman to shoot people himself to protect his business. They cannot see that. But wait until you have a bottle of water and a smartphone, and you're peacefully protesting with nothing but the Kenyan flag. That is when they know how to shoot. That is when they know how to throw tear gas canisters at you. That is when they, so it's I'm actually very, very mad at the happenings that happened today, and the fact that the government went back to its old card of infiltrating peaceful demonstrations with vandalism. And now, even the demonstrations had to be called off as early as 2 p.m. because it became apparent that the government had pulled out its card, the card of paying goons to go into the streets and taint the demonstrations as violent, because there is no way you can. This is not what we are advocating for. We were not advocating for us rising up against each other. It was the people burning this vehicle and the owner of this vehicle have the same enemy. This man is not even the owner of this vehicle is not even living a better life than the ones burning it. The car might probably be a loan. Majority of cars in Kenya are obtained through loans. Maybe you just paying your loan, then somebody touches up your vehicle, somebody loots your business. The vandalism and the hooliganism has to stop, and that is what I'm saying. Even if we go back to the streets tomorrow, the hooligans will still be paid to come back and vandalize, and they are taking advantage of the demonstrations to carry out their vandalism, and the police are taking advantage of the vandalism now to shoot innocent people. with the excuse that there was hooliganism going on, you people are stealing from. So we really need to going back to restructure, to re-strategize is not losing. There is a difference. Sometimes you just have to re-strategize because this one is not going to work with the hooliganism that is happening. The government is aiming at changing the public perception of the demos. And majority of Kenyans are gullible, so of course they will not even know, they will not even believe that the hooligans and the looters were paid. They'll think it is the young people who are now doing the same. I saw them torch vehicles today. They looted supermarkets, they looted clubs, they beat up people. It was a sad scene, unfortunately. I want you to look at the difference. By the way, it is clear that this is a government instigate. For example, the people in this same video, in this same shot, in this same camera shot, there are people burning vehicles. There are others stoning a restaurant, and there are police officers right there watching. Compare this with the demos that we saw last week, where there were peaceful protesters with nothing but mobile phones and bottles of water, and the police were shooting live bullets at them. But today, the police are watching as hooligans are looting, burning, looting, vandalizing businesses. And if you look at the far end of at the extreme end of this shot, you're going to see peaceful protesters at the end, the very far end, almost at the background of this still image on your screen. You're going to see peaceful protesters watching because they could not understand what was happening, because this is not what we want. We are not fighting against each other. I'll keep saying we're fighting against an oppressive regime that will go to bed smiling today, knowing that their playbook worked today, that they were able to infiltrate and stop the demonstrations as early as 1, 2 p.m. That is when demonstrators left and others could not even go to the streets. So unless we re-strategize and figure out how we can stop this, because this is what the government has been doing ever since 2018, 2019, former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko admitted that they bought and burnt vehicles in the eve of the 2017-2018 elections to portray the then opposition leader Raila Odinga as a violent man. So they would buy vehicles and torch them and then blame the opposition for torching the vehicles. And the people would be mad at the opposition, talking about how Raila is the lord of violence, while in real sense, he had even nothing to do with it. They would buy vehicles and torch them. It's the same playbook that is happening today. That is why, just look at this clip with all the vandalism happening. You're going to see the police doing nothing, just standing there. The same police who shoot and kill innocent protesters could not stop the vandalism and the hooliganism today. There they are. There they are. For certain Kenyan, because for example, I know the vehicle burning right there is an Uber. It's a Suzuki Alto, and majority of them are used for Uber. And yep, so a Kenyan will sleep today having lost his source of livelihood, because this is what he used to do for a living, and it was burnt. So a Kenyan is going to sleep today having lost his source of livelihood as the police watched the hooligans do this in the watch of the government. The government, which in the constitution is supposed to protect its people. In this case, it was supposed to protect the businesses. It was supposed to protect the demonstrators. It's not even a favor protecting the demonstrators. That is in Article 37 of the Constitution. Article 37 allows for peaceful demonstrations, picketing, and the police are supposed to be there to protect the demonstrators. So they failed to protect the young demonstrators who were out in the streets. They failed to protect the businesses that belong to Kenyans also, who had nothing to do with the oppressive regime. To be honest, the owner of that vehicle being touched right there had nothing to do with Ruto. He's probably suffering as much as we are, and we just made it worse. The workers who are going to get fired because Quickmart was looted, because supermarkets were looted, because bars were looted, are also Kenyans who are going through hardship the same way we are. So we made their lives harder. The government made their lives harder. I know the main point of this was to make the demonstrators have that sense of guilt and not go out again. While in real sense, it is not. The demonstrators had nothing to do with this. The young people had nothing to do with the vandalism and the looting that happened today. It was a playbook that we've seen before several times. And Sinovi agrees with me, and she's telling me it's very obvious, Dimori. I see the cops doing nothing, and a big shout out to Jiba Jaba, who's with me. The cops are just there watching. The same cops who are always the first ones to shoot innocent protesters who have nothing but a bottle of water. Today were all of a sudden blind. They couldn't see whatever was happening. And Jiba Jaba is saying, in America, we post signs in our neighborhoods. During a crisis, all looters will be shot. The protesters in Kenya tried that in the morning. They were able, let me see if I can see a video. They were able to arrest several of not arrest, they were able to discipline. They beat up several of the protesters today. But by the time it was afternoon, there were too many of them to let me share a video of the same. They tried they did beat up several thieves, but they became too many. The government had really invested in this, I guess, because they were able to they were not able to contain them. They were too many. It reached a point where the peaceful demonstrators just student watched. Now it became too much. So let me stop this video and share that one first, so that you can see how they really tried to stop the looters from spoiling this good cause, this movement that had nothing to do with the vandalism. But do you know, the police the police were the ones rescuing the thieves. For example, in this case, they caught this one and they were beating him up, but the police came and rescued him. As you can see, the police were very quick to come in and rescue the suspected thief. Not the suspected thief, he was the thief. They were very swift to come and rescue the thief. And you wonder, why is the swiftness when we see people getting shot and bleeding to death on the streets for lack of a vehicle to take them to a hospital? But they were very swift in rescuing the thieves. That was what was happening in Kenya. It wasn't a very successful day for the youth, because the demos got infiltrated by hooligans and criminals who had been paid by the government to change. You know, it's all about public perception, to change the public perception of the demos, to taint the demonstrations as violent and hooliganism happening. That was the original idea. So now it is up to us to go back and re-strategize and see how we can approach this differently, because even if we go back tomorrow, they are going to do the same. They are going to bring more hooligans to do the same. So let me finish with the video that I was sharing so that you can just see the level of hooliganism that was happening today. Yeah, look at the police. Look at the police. For the first time, they do not have guns. For the first time, all they can do is just point. For the first time, the Kenyan police do not use force. They do not fire at. For the first time, these people fire at anybody. They even fired at the Red Cross. They fired at a hospital today. They fired at a hospital. These people fired at the press. They fired at anybody, but they couldn't fire at these looters. You can see at the if you can see my cursor, if you can see my cursor, I'm pointing at a police officer pointing at the thieves, telling them go away. They couldn't fire today. All of a sudden, they didn't have bullets to shoot. The same bullets that have killed 39 people who have been confirmed so far. 39 people have been shot dead. 39 innocent civilians have been shot dead, but they couldn't shoot a single looter. The ones who died in Mombasa were shot dead by a business owner who was out there trying to protect his business. And that is how he had a gun. He was privileged enough to have a gun, and he shot 3 of them. But they ended up burning his premises and his vehicle, and he was arrested and he was almost murdered. He was almost lynched by the mob for protecting his business. So today, for the first time, the Kenyan police forgot how to use excessive force. That is, Sinove is saying Ruto is behind all of this. You can see it from a mile away. He's behind all of this. And Jeba says the cops got the memo. Same during the Black Lives Matter riots in the United States. And he goes on to say cops would set out a bait car that paid protesters would touch and trash it all for the negative media optics to be shown worldwide. Oh, the same script. Looks like they are reading from the same script where it's all about changing the public perception so that even if they shoot and kill innocent protesters, the public, the larger public will side with the government because they will be having the perception that these people are thieves, these people are looters, these people are hooligans. So it looks like they are reading from the same playbook, the same script. I've never seen, I'm not even lying, I've never seen the Kenyan police this calm. I mean, there's somebody stealing behind these 2 policemen, stealing from this cafe, and they are blind, they can't see him, apparently. These are the same people who will beat you up for asking the simple, they are going to come arrest you and they're going to ask, why are you arresting me? They're going to beat you up. These are the same people you should never even ask for identification. The way I see in the States or in the West or in democracies, that in other countries where a police officer is going to come arrest you and you are going to ask for the badge number. Try asking these ones for the badge number and you will see. But today they were blind. They couldn't see anything that was happening. Yeah, so I don't even need to share more videos for you to see that it was purely government sponsored chaos and hooliganism aimed at aimed at making the protests look like something they are not. So it's up to us to go back to the drawing board to re-strategize. As I said, re-strategizing is not losing. Re-strategizing is you trying to come up with a new way to deal with the same enemy, because at the moment we are not headed in that direction when we have people losing their livelihoods over demos, and it is not even the people who are demonstrating causing that. And Jibba is saying it's probably a fellow cop who's looting, probably. And as I come to the end of the show, Job is coming up in a bit. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. That has been what was happening in Kenya today. I was just keeping you on the know on how the demos were looking like today. As I said, it wasn't a really successful day. Successful day for the demonstrators, but we live another day. Thursday is gonna come, and I'm sure we are going to come up with a better way, and we're still going to go back to the streets, and we are still going to tell this government that it has to listen to us. And Sinove is saying right in our faces. So enjoy the rest of your day. Ladies and gentlemen, it's always a pleasure. Keep it black, hot fire.